So the first thing that we're gonna go do is get some fuel, and I'll tell you a little bit more about where we're going. And we're off. Let's go get some fuel and head out on a little ride today. Now that we've made it through the large town of Oakboro and got fuel, and we are headed to see the pirate graves that are supposedly in Salisbury. I've heard of stories about these things for the last little while, and finally did a little bit of research and figured out where they were, and want to try to ride up there and take a look at them. The history on them is not super clear. I don't exactly know the true story behind it, but I've heard two that I think are pretty cool, and I tend to think it's one more than the other. But the way that I heard it is the first story was that these 4 pirates were part of Edward Teach's crew, and somewhere along the lines of whenever he was fixing to either be captured or you know, they either jumped ship, you know, somewhere before or right around the time he was killed, then made their way inland to Rowan, Salisbury-ish area. And you know, at the time, pirates were still super wanted people. They were not generally welcome in normal society. And for whatever reason, somebody got wind that they were in the area, and then they were later captured and executed, and happened to be buried in this graveyard with the markings of skull and crossbones. So, and if you don't know who Edward Teach is Blackbeard. That's probably one of the most famous pirates ever, as far as real pirates go, and he was a North Carolina resident. He owned land in Bath, North Carolina, and had property all over, had stops all over, but he was also quite ruthless and didn't have quite the reign of terror that people thought he did. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to double check this, but I want to say he was only a pirate for several years. I don't think this was like a lifelong type thing. But anyway, supposedly that is the story with these graves. We're gonna ride up here and take a look, see if we can get in the graveyard and actually look at them and see what the deal is with them. And then when later on, I'll tell you the other story, and then you can make the determination of what you think. Maybe one's more believable than the other. Maybe one's, you know, maybe they're both complete BS. Who knows? I just do think it's kind of funny the way that they are marked and the way that they are, I guess, not advertised, but I guess the way they're recorded. So let's hit the road and see what we can see. Very interesting. Let's see if we can find the graves of the pirates, like they said. One would assume they would be back in this area because of the what looks like the age of the graves. Alright, so we're going to walk down here a little ways and see if we can find the pirate graves. Like I was telling you earlier, this supposedly the story is that these graves were part of Edward Teach's, or Blackbeard's, crew. And whenever his crew decided to go south, I guess whenever they were getting close to being captured, he was getting close to being killed, whatever, they jumped ship and came inland. Now, of course, this could have been anybody's crew, who knows, but that is the story anyway, or the story I was told. Heard it told a couple different ways. Now, I don't know where these graves are, so I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna find them, but we're gonna walk around until we do. I kind of have an idea of what they look like, and that's what we're gonna kind of go for. So anyway, let's see if we can find these graves real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right here are the graves that everybody talks about being pirate graves. And you can see people come and visit these things pretty regularly. Very cool, very cool. So the other story with these things, and I'll have to look up the term, the verbiage, terminology, whatever it is, but the other story with these are that they were people that had infectious diseases and they were buried here, and the skull and crossbones is to let people know that their bodies might be contaminated and might pass on some sort of disease or whatever. There is a term for it. It's the skull and crossbones comes from an England type thing, and that's kind of what a lot of people believe. But honestly, I don't know why that would be there like that. That doesn't make sense to me. I like to believe that they're pirates. That's just my opinion. I tend to think they're pirates, and I want to believe they're pirates. And I'll show you some more proof here in a second of why I think they're pirates. All right, so now here is another reason why I tend to believe the pirate theory is mainly because of that. It literally says that those 4 graves are pirates. Now, of course, whether you believe that or not, that's kind of your choice. I think it's a cool idea. It's a very believable story. I mean, pirates were here in North Carolina back in the day. Matter of fact, a lot of the pirate stories are from the coast of North Carolina and the Bahamas, and down towards Florida and all that stuff. But a lot of history in North Carolina if people are just willing to kind of wake up and see it, So we're gonna get back on the bike, try to find something to eat here in just a little bit. I think that would be a good idea. Well, that was super cool. You don't get to see stuff like that very often, especially not that close to me. This place is about an hour away from my parents' house, so not very far at all, and a pretty interesting little ride. I'm gonna do a little research on the history of this when I get back, see what I can find out to be more factual of anything. So I think now it's time to ride somewhere and get something to eat. There's a lot of history right around you if you're just willing to look. And that's just the thing. A lot of people aren't willing to do the research, or hell, a lot of people aren't even really interested in it. A lot of people don't give a crap one way or the other about history or the cool things around them. That's one thing I never understand. Sure would like to find some dirt roads. That would be amazing. I don't think I'm gonna find any around here though. This is as historical and rural as this is. This is more established, I think, than like around Mount Gilead and Asheboro where I was riding the other week and on dirt roads. Looks like I just keep missing the rain because I just came through here and it looks like it rained since I've been through here. I'm okay with that. I am prepared though, just in case. It's one thing I learned over the years is if you're gonna ride a motorcycle and not gonna carry basic tools with you or things like that, you are in for a treat whenever something does happen, be it a flat tire or, you know, God forbid you lay it down and break a clutch lever or a shifter or something. That's the worst. Now, it's more likely to happen on a bike like this than it would be on, you know, say like hell, I don't even know what sport bikes are called anymore. I know, you know, I used to have a FZ1 and I had an R1, I had an R6, had GSX-Rs. You know, now they're R7.5, 0.65, I don't know what they are. Anyway, generally speaking, you're going to have more issues on a bike like this because this bike's going to be rode quite differently, more chances of a flat tire and things like that. But you know, the hope is that you don't have to deal with that at all. But it's nice to be prepared if you are. It adds a little bit of weight, and I've got my top box on here. I'm going to have to do some adjustment on it because it is quite heavy. And I've got my tools in it, I've got my drone in it, I've got some other things in it. It's making it heavier than it needs to be. And my side bags are pretty well empty. They got soft stuff in them, which I need to probably redistribute the tools into two smaller tool cases and put one on either side to kind of distribute that and put them in the bottom of the bags. Keep that weight a little bit lower. See a Harbor Freight at some point today. I might stop in and get another one of those little tool bags. That's what I use to keep my tools in now, and it seems to work pretty good. It's one of those situations where you just kind of dump it out and find what you need. It's not very good way to organize them, but as far as keeping them all together, it does a good job. Overall, I'd say probably 8 out of 10 as far as lunch experiences go. They had pretty good beer. I had one that mimics Blue Moon. Blue Moon's my favorite. After sitting around for a little bit, I decided it's now time to get back on the road, and I'm gonna zigzag our way back and see kind of what we can see.
Well, I finally made it back home, safe and sound, and I gotta say it was a fun ride. I did not realize that I had such a cool piece of history that close to my house. I saw a video on TikTok or something like that, and it, was telling kind of the history of it, those little 30-second documentaries that they put on there, and I thought, that's pretty neat. And then I saw it was North Carolina. I was like, well, maybe, North Carolina can be a broad statement. That could be, 5 hours in one direction. And then, it said Rowan County, and I was thinking, well, that's literally like a county away from me. So figured I'd give it a shot and see what it was like. But I really enjoyed it. I think I'm going to end the video here and take my boots off. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Subscribe if you like this stuff. I don't put out consistently, but I do put out stuff whenever I'm able to get out and about. So thanks again. Have a great day.
Beedaloo. Check, check, checky, check.